Hey friends, good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. I hope you are well. Today it's going to be a bit more of a chit-chatty video because I want to talk about my reading goals for this year. Hopefully it's not going to be a very long video, but very casual. I have my orange juice here with me, so that's definitely orange juice. So shall we just get on with it? Okay, so I'm just gonna talk to you. We're chilling together here. So obviously this year one of my main reading goals is to complete my Goodreads reading challenge. So I put my Goodreads reading challenge to 80, I think, and I do that on purpose. Last year I also did the same. I do it at 80 because I don't know about you, but sometimes when you see how Goodreads tells you, and even Storygraph does this, if you're behind, like you're like 3 books behind your reading goal, that gets me too anxious. I can't deal with that. Reading is for fun, it's for relaxation, it's for self-care. I don't want to be in competition with myself, so I always stick to 80 because 80 books I know I will read, and even if I don't, it's not a big deal. But 80 just seems like a really good number for me. If I read more than 80, I will change my Goodreads goal eventually when I hit it, but that's that. So it's a very overarching goal for the year, around 80 books. Perfect. Also, my goal for this year is, and a lot of my other goals actually kind of like feed into this overarching umbrella goal, which is to read with intent. Now, I don't know about you, but sometimes I get caught up with reading what everyone else is reading, or kind of getting caught up in the trends and such that's happening online. I'm easily persuaded to read books, but reading with intent, I want to take the time in deciding what I want to read. I want to also take the time to think about what I read. That's why I've started a reading journal like properly this year, because I want to sit with my thoughts and kind of think about what I'm reading. But not only that, but it also means like reading my actual physical TBR, which is another goal of mine, and it feeds into this idea of reading with intent. I have so many unread books on my shelves that it's kind of disgusting to me because I haven't really taken the time to think about the amount of books that I own that I haven't yet read. I just was so constantly wanting to buy new books, because for me, buying books is a very different hobby to reading books, and I love reading, but I also love buying books because it's something that has always brought me joy. So I never really like stopped that temptation, because I always used to think to myself, well, I pay my bills and that's all. Buying books is really the only form of like spending on myself that I do. That's not like necessary. Actually, no, I do love buying jewelry, as you can tell, and bags, but like books as well. It was my little like guilty pleasure, and I love reading and I love collecting books. But this year, because I want to read with intent and just be more mindful, I want to read the books that I physically own. So I have around about, I think, like, if we're not including classics, around like 92 books on my physical TBR that I haven't yet read. Including classics, it's a lot. It's too much. So I'm aiming to get my physical TBR to at least, I would like to say 50, because I don't want to have no unread books on my TBR, but I want to have less than 50 at least. If I can get that down to like 30-20, I'd be so happy. But we're just going to focus on reading my physical TBR. We're going to focus on reading my backlist, and thus another kind of offshoot of reading with intent is we're not going to be hauling books as much. I'm actually on a book buying ban. I haven't purchased any books from a bookstore or from online since December 2nd, Book boxes don't count. I get one book box every month. That doesn't count. And it's like the only, don't take that away from me. But I'm on a book buying ban because I don't want to constantly be buying books and just like not reading them. That's an issue for me. It's a huge issue for me. And so I'm tracking everything that's coming in. I'm tracking the books that I'm reading and when they came onto my TBR. I just want to focus on taking time this year with the books that I have, and that is the plan. So that's like 3 goals, but 2 of them are part A and B of the first one, which is reading with intent. Okay, I have a challenge to myself. These are like personal challenges that I want to read all of my 2020, so the books that I own on my physical TBR that were 2022 releases that I obviously haven't yet read. When I listed all of them, I was just so, I'm like, how? Because most of these books were pre-orders. I was just not reading them when they were coming in. And I have to show you this actually. Let me get it up. So I have this database on my Notion where it's new releases unread 2022. You can't really see it, but there you go, it's there. And at the moment I have 11 unread 2022 new releases on my shelf, which I've worked hard on. I have read 13 books this year and the end of last year. So this is a challenge that I'm working on. I want all of these books to be unread by like not even the end of the year, by like the 6-month mark, because these are all books that I pre-ordered. Is that true? Okay, so there's like 11 books that I didn't pre-order, but still, there's like 20 something books on this list, and at least half of them have been pre-orders and I haven't read them. Like I just, again, be mindful of what I'm reading. If I'm not reading them, why aren't I reading them? If I'm so excited about them, I just want to get these books finished because I am desperate to read them. Honestly, we're working through my backlist. That's all it is. Like this year is the year of my physical TBR. I'll do a check-in halfway through the year and see if I'm actually been doing it. But bloody oath, I'm gonna try my hardest. And then I want to read at least 12 non-fiction books this year, which is around about 1 a month, yeah. So last year I read 12 or 13, which I was very excited about. Didn't quite realize that I had read that much. And yes, it's not much, but it's a lot for me because I think my issue with nonfiction is that I am constantly like reading nonfiction throughout the day when I'm working on my thesis because research. So when I want to relax and chill, I don't necessarily want to read a nonfiction novel. I want to read a fiction novel. But last year I read some really fantastic memoirs, and I think this year we're going to do the same. There's also a few books that I want to read that's more about kind of like sociological explorations of certain things like sex and gender and sexuality, as well as kind of the impact of colonialism and invasion. So on like various, like one of the non-fiction books I really want to read is Whole Picture, which explores like I think it's a British museum, the British Museum, or just museums in general, and how a lot of their artifacts were taken by the countries that were invaded by Britain. So this legacy of colonialism, and how a lot of these artifacts are priceless artifacts of Indigenous peoples, but are just, they've been stolen and never been given back. So like that's one of the books that I would also love to read. So we're hopeful this year. If you have any recommendations for really great non-fiction books in similar veins, even memoirs, let me know, because I would like some recommendations. Maybe I'll do a video of the non-fiction books that are on my list. Is that something that you'd be interested in? I don't know, let me know. This goal came about because I realized last year that I didn't really read a lot of classics in comparison to previous years. So this year I do want to read more classics than I did last year. I think my issue last year was I was doing the Dickens versus Tolstoy reading challenge book club, and my issue was that Charles Dickens, I didn't really enjoy reading his books. I'm hoping that his later works are better, because I do have a lot of those on my shelf, but his earlier works, I didn't enjoy them. I didn't, and because of that, I didn't really read any other classics, because I was always focused on reading the Dickens novel, or even the Tolstoy. Like, the Tolstoy short stories were fine, but it was mostly the Dickens novels. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why I didn't particularly read other classics as much as I would have, because I was just so exhausted from trying to digest Dickens, honestly. Oh, that's very sour orange juice. Why is that? So read more classics. I have a few classics that I desperately want to get to in 2023. If you've watched my 23 books I want to read in 2023 video, you would know the classics that I would like to get to. I think I have just so many wonderful classics on my shelves that I just need to go and just pick randomly. Maybe I'll do a video every month of me just randomly picking a classic, maybe randomly generated, and I have to read that in a week or whatever. But I need to read more classics, because I thoroughly love reading them. I enjoy the reading experience of them, except for Dickens. Maybe I should challenge myself to read a Dickens novel. I've read David Copperfield and I really loved that one, actually. Do you have a Dickens novel that you recommend? What's your favorite Dickens novel? Let me know. Should I read it? Anyway, let's move on. I feel like every booktuber says this. Oh, I can't believe I'm not a booktuber. I'm a tiny little channel that talks about books. But everyone talks about how they want to cut as many, they want to read as many series that I'm currently reading. That's my plan for this year. I want to read as many series that I can, and a majority of the series for me is just to catch up on series, to get to the most recent release. I have a few of those. I have at least 20 currently reading series that I need to catch up on or finish entirely, and that's really all. And deciding whether or not to continue some series. For instance, the Jane Austen Murder Club, that one by Tertza Price. I don't know if I want to continue that series. The Good Girl's Guide to Murder series by Holly Jackson. Don't know if I want to read the third one. I don't know. I'm not interested. So it's just things like that. I would like to catch up, finish, do all that good stuff, because I have this propensity of accidentally starting series. It's an issue. And the last challenge, I'm gonna call them my mum's challenges for me. So she did this as well last year. So my mum's challenge that I'm bringing from last year as well to this year, because I had a lot of fun doing it. I have to read a book every month that has a word in the title that starts with the letter of the month. Does that make sense? So last year for January, I read The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. So like that. I want to continue that challenge this year. I had a lot of fun completing that last year. It was something that I was just doing in the background. I thought it was cool. I did create a TBR for it, but then I realized that I enjoyed just picking up books on a whim in that month that I liked the sound of and that had a word in the title that started with the letter of the month. I am going to do this again because I had a lot of fun doing it last year. I think it's a really little interesting reading challenge, and I like to check in with my mum every few months, be like, Mum, I have done your challenge for the past 3 months. These are the books that I read. Here's what I thought about them. I just think it's fun. Mum and I do it. It's fun. Anyway, so I'm going to continue doing that. But my mum did say that authors' names count if it's too hard to find a book on my physical TBR. So she did have a little addendum to her challenge just in case, which I really appreciate. And then another challenge from Mum, and this is the last challenge for this year, or goal I should say. So you know how on a book buy and ban to make it more fun, Mum said, okay, what about the amount of books that you read is the amount of money you can spend on books? So it kind of plays into this idea of being more mindful with what I'm consuming. So for instance, I've read 11 books in January as of right now. So I have $11 in my book buying account, so to speak, metaphorically. And I think that's really fun. I think it's an interesting idea because I could spend $11. Could I? Most likely, I'd most likely find something like a Kindle book or a cheap classic, or go to like an op shop and buy heaps of books for $3. But it's this idea of like, okay, wait, what do I want to bring in? Are there books that I desperately want to read? Being more intent, being more mindful with what I'm consuming. So I think it's a good challenge that is kind of a part of this wider goal for me this year, which is being more mindful. So I think that's really fun. So I'll see if when I get up to like 20 books, if I decide to spend $20 on buying a book. But in saying that, a lot of new releases here in Australia cost like $20 to $25 to buy. So I'm gonna have to be really, really thoughtful with what I'm purchasing. But I'm excited for it. Anyway, that's really all. I hope this was a fun chit-chatty video. I feel like I didn't really make much sense, a bit chaotic. It's fine. Let me know your thoughts. What are you doing this year? Are there any books that you really want to make sure that you get to this year? Let me know. Oh my god, that orange juice is so sour.